like to start our work today now. Going through these verses, and we go along, we'll hear that the words that we'll be discussing today, to give glory to Him on what He has done for us, sinner, and how we can be right with Him, our righteous, glorious, and holy God. And I want to start with Psalm 130 verse 3, which reads, "If you, O Lord, should mark iniquities, O Lord, who could stand?" And this is the question, no, that we should really be thinking as believers of Christ and Christians. If He is going to mark our iniquities, who could stand? And also, Paul, in his relentless speech in human depravity, also concludes a crushing verdict. And if we read Romans 3:19-20, here it reads, Romans 3:19-20, "Now we know that whatever the law says, it speaks to those who are under the law, so that every mouth may be stopped, and the whole world may be held accountable to God." So from here now we'll see that every one of us is under the law. Every unredeemed human being. Jews received the written law from Moses, and the Gentiles have the works of the law written in their hearts, so that both groups are accountable. So now, the Jews receiving the written law, and the Gentiles, the works of the law written in their hearts. And we are all accountable. And we say that every mouth stopped accountable. There is no defense against the guilty verdict God pronounces on the entire human race. We will all be accountable. So, we are going to summarize it. We will be held accountable when that time comes. Although we may look at God's forgiveness, ito ang madaling ibenta, lalo na sa ating secular na pakikipagnaig sa Diyos. Ito ang madaling ibenta, God's forgiveness. Although we may look at God's forgiveness, but we should never forget also, or we should be aware that, or we should always be aware actually, that God also stated His will in His laws. Although He is a forgiving God, but He also has His will, which is written in the law, in our law. That is, kahit matyaga siyang naghihintay sa atin, that He is long-suffering, He is abundant in mercy, forgiving our iniquity and transgression. Ito ang hindi dapat malimutan ng bawat nananampalataya, that He by no means clears the guilty. Number 14:18. Also the same thing, if we look at Exodus 34:6-7. Exodus 34:6-7 says, The Lord passed before him and proclaimed, the Lord, a God merciful and gracious, slow to anger, and abounding in steadfast love and faithfulness. No? Keeping steadfast love for thousands, forgiving iniquity and transgression and sin, but who will by no means clear the guilty, visiting the iniquity of the fathers and the children's children, to the third and the fourth generation. Doon sa mga nabasa nating mga verses, no, from Psalm, which it says, who could stand when we know all the iniquities that we have, who could stand with the Lord? And what the Romans says, that these laws were given to the Jews and written and also to the hearts of the Gentiles, so that all mouths will be stopped. You have no reason, no? And say that no means that it will clear out all the guilty. Same with what we have read a while ago in Exodus, when we say that all, no, guilty will be held accountable. And we know, ang problema dito, we know we are guilty, we know we are sinners, we know we will be accountable one day. And what these verses are saying, ay nandyan ang Panginoon, that we will really account us when that time comes. And God will not close His eyes or look away with sin, na para bang wala lang nangyari. And the truth is, those who sinned are doomed to hell, and if fallen people have no means to atone themselves, kasi ito ang matatanong natin, we know we are sinner, and we know that God will not look away or turn His face away with this sin, na hindi ito maklear. And we know that we are doomed without the forgiveness of this sin. So what hope, ano, our most or best concern for us, no, bilang mga nanampalataya, bilang isang Kristiyano, or it is a big concern. We can think maybe, I'll do yung mga laws ay binigay sa akin, maybe I can follow some, but not also all the time. This is our biggest concern. And ito ang tanong, what hope do we hold on to? Is there hope for anyone? And we know, we should ask, how can we right with God? How can a person be right with God? So this is taken from the Gospel according to Paul, no? As we start leaving that question in our mind now. How can I be right with God? Let's open our Bible in Job 9 verse 2. It says here, truly I know that it is so, but how can a man be in the right before God? And this question, similar question, has been presented also sa maraming mga verses, kagaya ng binasa natin kanina sa panimula, Psalm 130 verse 3. If you, Lord, mark our iniquities, who could stand? The same thing sa Psalm 143 verse 2. In God's sight, no one is living righteous. In Isaiah 64 verse 6, the same thing. We are like unclean thing, and our righteousness like filthy rags. So kung ito, even the prophet Isaiah himself is saying, we are unclean thing. No? At ang righteousness na binabandera natin are like filthy rags. So how? Paano? Paano tayo maging tama sa Panginoon? How can we be right? No? Let's open our Bible also on Micah 6, verse 6 to 7. Micah 6, verses 6 to 7, it says, with what shall I come before Lord, and bow myself before God on high? Shall I come before Him with burnt offerings, with calves a year old? Will the Lord be pleased with 1,000 of rams, with 10,000 of rivers of oil? Shall I give my firstborn for my transgression, the fruit of my body for the sin of my soul? He has told you, O man, what is good, and what does the record require of you? 8, 9, 7. So what shall I come before the Lord? And we know, alam natin sa recap siguro, sa Job 2 verse 7 to 8, we see there, so Satan went out at the presence of the Lord and struck Job with loathsome sores from the sole of his foot to the crown of his head. And he took a piece of broken pottery, to which he scraped himself while he sat in the ashes. No? So, nakita natin, there are many, this question has been there, written in the Old and New Testaments, which ask, how can I be right with God? From Psalm to Isaiah to Micah. And we know a person, which everyone would say at his time, that this is a righteous man, which is Job. And we know very well, sa binasa natin kanina, 2:7 to 8, that he was filled with sores. He was blameless and upright. If we see Job 1 verse 1, this man, there was a man in the land of Uz whose name was Job. And this man was blameless and upright, one who feared God and one who turned away from evil. Blameless and upright was used in verses Job 1 verse 1, 1 verse 8, and 2 verse 3. Yung nasabi sa 1 verse 1, tingnan natin sa 1 verse 8. And the Lord said to Satan, have you considered my servant, that there is none like him on earth, blameless and upright man? And also 2 verse 3. And the Lord said to Satan, have you considered my servant Job, that there is none like him on earth, a blameless and upright man, who fears God and turns away from evil? This is God telling this blameless and upright man. But remember, the very best of men that we all have, or we have mentioned earlier, Isaiah, Job, other prophets, There were more like them on earth. But we cannot deny the fact that they are all sinners. Isaiah, Job is also a sinner. And Job was, talagang king siya sa sinfulness niya. Kasi pag nakita natin dito, ito madalas panghahawakan natin. If a man declares himself to be righteous, kita natin sa pagdarasal ng ng tax collector at ng Pharisee. Look at this tax collector, buti pa ako, sabi niya. Man will hold on to that righteousness. But this man that we have mentioned earlier, si Job, sinabi niya sa 3 verses, God himself was saying, blameless and upright, what is this man doing? Tingnan natin sa Job 1 verse 5. And when the days of the feast had run their course, Job would send and consecrate them, and he would rise early in the morning and offer burnt offerings according to the number of them all. For Job said, it may be that my children have sinned and cursed God in their hearts, that Job thus Job did continually. No? For the sake of his children, pag mabasa natin dito, yung kanyang mga anak ay nag-party-party, nag-invite at mag-party-party, he offered sin offerings to them. And also, if we remember, Job had friends also. No? At the time of his suffering, sinasabi sa kanya, baka naman yung suffering mo ay result yan ng mga secret guilt mo or heinous sin mo against God. Pressing him with accusations. Tingnan natin sa Job 8 verse 4. Remember keep in mind, this was a blameless and upright man as what God said. If your children have sinned against him, he has delivered them into the hand of their transgressions. Nagsimula yung accusations mula doon sa mga anak. But let's go on further at 5 to 6. If you will seek God and plead with the Almighty for mercy, if you are pure and upright, surely He will rouse Himself for you and restore your rightful habitation. It's like it's saying na, sigurado may nagawa kang kasalanan. At pag ma-restore mo yun, then He will start restoring whatever you have lost, that rightful habitation that you have. There was an accusation for him, simula sa mga anak niya, nangyayari. Dito madalas din natin, madalas tayo bilang tao, or lalo na, ang mga hindi nakakilala sa Diyos, they would equate all these sufferings and pain to what? They would equate this, whether you are pleasing God or not. But remember here, as Christians, we should not do it. Ito, malinaw na binabasa natin. Job himself, God was saying he was blameless, upright, and going through all these sufferings, losing your children, losing everything that you have, being sick. No? Even Christ, the best example of it all, who had no sin, suffered, died. So we cannot equate all this suffering that you have, no? Because the same thing, same manner na hindi lahat na nananagana ay okay sa Diyos. No? You cannot equate these two things. But this is what we are hearing from these accusations that Job is hearing from his supposed to be friends, so-called friends who are supposed to be knowing him. And if we go at Job 8 verse 20, behold, God will not reject a blameless man, nor take the hands of the evil doers. So no. We know that Job is clearly struggling. I'm sure we will go through this. And we have seen many people who have gone under this. You have some sort of your troubled conscience, asking yourself, ano bang nagawa ko? No? Because we have heard it many times being preached. People will say, bakit ako pa, Lord? Ba't hindi na lang yung iba? We have even heard mga mga patotoo that people have undergone or experienced suffering when they started doing godly things. Sabi nila, mas okay pa nung hindi ako nagpunta dyan sa hindi ako nagkasakit. Okay ang finances ko. Kung kailan ako lumapit sa iyo, Lord, saka mo naman ako binagsak. May mga ganong cases. So here we can see clearly, just try to make sense of it. Him being declared by God blameless and upright, and then going through this. There's a sense of struggle with his conscience, what his conscience is telling him. No? He knew he was innocent. Alam niya, wala siyang ginagawa na kung ano man na tinatago. We all have our sins, no? But siya, he would try to recall, ano bang nagawa ko? What did I do to offend God and to deserve this? Yan ang mga tanong, yan ang matatanong mo madalas. And he knew he was innocent of unprecedented, no? Evil or mga hypocritical works niya. Ano ba kung nagpaka-hipokrito? Showing something else of what I really am. And he could not find. Yun ang struggle niya. And he knew, ito, but he was fallen and prone to sin. He knew he's not hypocritical. He knew na hindi siya, wala siyang maalala na gawa niyang kasama, but he also knew that he is prone to sin. Kasi may clear distinction dapat dun, na sabi mo, wala akong naalala na ginawa ko masama, but still, you have to remember, you are prone to sin. And you are fallen. Because when you hold on to counting, no? Hold on to counting, wala naman akong nagawang kasalanan, na? Your self-righteousness is already emerging out of you. So the same thing as what Paul said, no? In 1 Corinthians 4 verse 4. Tingnan po natin. So 1 Corinthians 4 verse 4. Sinabi rito, for I am not aware of anything against myself, but I am not thereby acquitted. It is the Lord who judges me. Ito ang struggle ni Job during this time. And the same thing Paul is stating. So we have that sense of clarity, no? Or this, we can compare these two persons. Na involves sa story natin sa umaga na ito. Apostle Paul knew, I know nothing against of myself, but he knew he is not justified by this. He who judges me is the Lord. Madalas akong nakakapakita ng kasi sinusundan ko rin yan si Ray Comfort sa siya, yung street preacher siya actually. At madalas niya nag-interview. At ang madalas niyang tanong is yung sa mga kung paano ba niya ma-assess ang isang tao. He said, yung sabi niyo, yung goodness ng tao ba? Are you a good man? Never. ka or never, siguro, kasi meron, sabihin, no? Siguro 99 out of 100, then nagsabing they are good men. They are good. In what sense? Or what is the standard they are using for them to declare goodness in themselves? Kung ano man ang standard nila, most of the time ay secular standard. This is what is accepted. This is the norm. O ito ang good para sa akin. Ito yung mga and never you would hear that I measured myself or sinukat ko yung sarili ko based on what the law of God is saying. Never ka makarinig. And most of them will even say, yes, I am really a good person. And then he will ask, nagsinungaling ka ba sa buong buhay mo? Oo, sinungaling ako. Nagnakaw ka ba kahit maliit lang sa buong buhay mo? Oo, nagnakaw ako. Sabi niya, nag-blaspheme ka ba sa Panginoon? Nag-OMG ka? Oo, nag-OMG ako. Ka ba? Naglalas ka ba sa opposite sex by looking at them, by just merely looking at them? Oo, naglalas. And then, out of that 4 questions, no? At tanungin sila uli, ano sa palagay mo? Mabuti ka ba tao? Oo, mabuti akong tao. You would really, no? Just drop on your chair, maybe kung saan ka man nakaupo, no? Seeing these things. How people would measure themselves to whatever standards they are measuring themselves in terms of goodness. Kaya ka na talaga my goodness. No? Ito lang masabi mo. Kaya anong makita natin? So here, no, these are 2 good examples that we have read. Job and Paul were saying, I know nothing against of myself, but yet I'm not justified by this. It is He who judges me. The same thing sa sinabi sa Romans 7 verse 24. Sapo natin ang Bible sa Romans 7 verse 24. What does it say? Wretched man that I am, who will deliver me from this body of death? Same question was raised by Job in Job 9 verse 2. How can a man be righteous to God? So lagi natin pinagtatabi na itong dalawang ito, no? Because these are really, this question goes, no, in the mind of Job and Paul. And if you are really a concerned Christians, no, we are really concerned Christians that is concerned about your standing with God, no? Or their concern in the relation with God, knowing, no, that there is no satisfying questions to comfort ourselves with this question, ay talagang you would ask yourself, how can I be? Paano na ako? Paano na ako? If Paul is saying, I know nothing against myself, but yet I'm not justified by this, at sinasabi rin ni Job, wala akong naalala, wala akong na anong ginagawa, and everything that he is doing is also giving sacrifices for this. And also, again, Job even asked, Job 14 verse 4, what did he say? Who can bring a clean thing out of an unclean? No one. Sabi niya. The same thing, no, na sabi natin, you cannot be something that you are not. If you are unclean, who can bring cleanliness out of you? Then, ito, tanong natin, how can I really find favor with God? This is a question of every conscious individual will certainly have to face. If I were guilty before God, no, without excuse for our sins, then how am I going to stand in the judgment day? Kasi sabi niya, it was given to the Jews in their law. It was written into your heart. Para wala kang masabi. Excuse. No excuse.
No one is excuse.
Mm.
As the law.
And we have presented this to gentlemen, Job and Paul, for saying the same thing. It's not me who will judge, but the Lord. How can I give something clean? Or how can I present something clean to God when I myself is unclean? Sabi ni Job. Yun ang isang part ng ano natin, no? Usapan sa umaga ito. And the second part is what he says in Exodus 23 verse 4. Sabi niya, sorry. If God demands utter perfection, and we know we are imperfect, ano ang hope? Anong pag-asa natin? No? If the divine justice requires wages of sin to be paid in full, no? How could God ever justify a sinner without violating His own integrity? Because He cannot violate one of His attributes in order to comply with the other. He cannot be just loving and not just at the same time. He should be loving and just at the same time. And how to hold this integrity? Sabi nga niya sa Exodus 23 verse 7, He will not justify the wicked. No? But ito, the world religions, major social political groups, theories, ideologies, devise many ways for us to comply with this. And we know very well, some belief would say, by having meritorious works of our own, outdo your bad deeds with your good deeds. No? Ito, I don't need to mention the groups that believes in this theology. Just outdo your good your bad deeds with your good deeds. No? Actually, meron nga akong sa mga kasamahan ko. They were the ones who actually invited me for discussion about the belief nila, belief natin. And I just asked them actually, if you are really accounting, because this if your salvation is a major thing for you, sasabihin, if you believe that after this life I will spend my life in either because you have two eternities anyway, you're eternally with God or in hell. If that is a big thing for you, sa mga malalaki at importanteng bagay, no, binubuhos natin yung lakas natin, isip natin, everything, every resources that you can possibly have in your hand that is at your disposal, gagamitin mo in order to achieve something that is very important for you. If your salvation is very important for you, ask yourself, are you accounting your good deeds compared with your bad deeds? How would you know? Ngayon, sa buhay na to, ay nung minsan nga lang nag-accounting ka siguro ng pera mo, di mo alam kung saan mo nagastos yung iba. Are you even listing the bad deeds that you're doing every day and the good ones? And try to imagine, if you believe in this teaching, that when you face God, your good deeds should outweigh. Kapag namali ka siguro ng accounting at lumampas ka, ay nagkulang pala akong konti, then you are not qualified. Are you holding your salvation on that, that belief? That later, kasi pag nandun ka na, no more going back, no more chance. You have to be 100% sure, dito pa lang, na mayroon akong more good deeds than the bad deeds. If you could not really even account, no, yung alam mo, I'm sure, madami sa atin, dumating ang point na hindi mo alam kung saan mo nagastos yung ano mo. And we are doing the monthly accounting sa mga ginagastos natin, saan napupunta ang kinikita, saan na ginastos. And we will surely fall short of some gastos na hindi natin na-monitor. But you're talking about salvation. It's that serious. No turning back. Isa pa, by self-denial. Another belief would say this: deprive your things from anything or any worldly thing. No? I remember watching Rabbi, no? Nag-interview siya sa babae which is holding on to another faith which practice this self-denial. Yung babae ay may anak. And she's trying to distance herself. She has not seen her daughter for years. Kasi ito ay, sabi niya, ay earthly desire ko na to be a mother. I would not compromise my faith, my belief with this desire. So she distanced herself from her daughter, her family, actually everyone, to satisfy self-denial. Ito pa, by creating an image of deity for whom sin is no big deal. Napakarami nito. Ay tinatawag nga sila mga carnal Christians. Carnal Christian, sabi nung isa kong napanood na interview, don't worry for me, pastor. I'm okay. I'm a carnal Christian. To satisfy whatever they think for them is true. Or by giving sacrifice, giving like that. Marami tayong nakikita dito. Sige, okay lang ako. Basta yung donasyon ko nandyan kay nandyan sa pinapadalhan ko kanina pa man. Kasi actually this thing would come up with the same first one that we have mentioned, no? Of doing your bad deeds with your good deeds. Or by just doing what the human law allows, what is acceptable to many, what is acceptable to the law of man. So the world is going to present us ways how we can comply somehow in our thinking, how we can comply with what God demands from us. Ito, yung mga sinabi natin kanina, kasi ito din makikita natin sa mga konseptong sinabi natin that God, that men are also really they wanted to be have somehow affiliation doon sa buhay na walang hanggan. But how to get there is yun ang problema. No? Somehow gusto nila. We have been looking marami tayong napapanood na movie. I've been looking for my whole life for the Fountain of Youth, for the their sin and condemns them for it. That's what Romans says. Romans 3:20 verse says, by the deeds of the flesh, no flesh will be justified in God's sight. For by the law is the knowledge of sin. So paano na tayo ngayon? Matthew 19 verse 25, Mark 10 verse 23, Luke 18 verse 26 is asking, who then can be saved? Sa mga narinig natin, we know that we are unclean, we are deprived, it is the Lord who will justify whatever I am not, even if I cannot remember doing sin, it's not those things that I don't remember not doing sin will justify me, but only the Lord. So how can I be justified? Who then can be saved? Pag may nakita natin, sabi nga natin kanina, if you are really serious about your salvation, this question should really never leave your mind. No? Because from the sinner's point of view, salvation is impossible. But eto, this is what the word is saying. Matthew 19 verse 26, With men, all these are impossible, but with God, all things are possible. Dito no sa mga verses na binabasa natin at pinag-aaralan natin, if we really understand or got the meaning of what the word is telling us, dito pa lang no sa mga binabasa na natin would learn us no, would teach us to humble ourselves, because we know by ourselves we can do nothing, which is true. Napaulit-ulit natin pinagdadasal, ulit-ulit natin sinasabi, by ourselves we can do nothing. Apart from Him, we can do nothing. And what this word is saying, with men, these things are impossible. Things, many things, we cannot comprehend. Many things science cannot explain. But still, no, makikita natin kung gaano kayabang ang tao. He would generate some explanation, formulate some explanation, make some computation with a lot of assumptions in it. Ayan na. No? If you are after the truth, when you compute, don't assume some values, don't assume something. It should be totoo, absolute. No? And this is what the word is saying. Many things may be impossible to you, but not to God. So when you ask, kung ganun pala ako ka makasalanan, kung ganito ka pala ka-righteous ang Panginoon na haharapin ko one day, so how can I be? How can I make sure that I will be saved? So no? Romans 3:21. We remember Romans 1, 2, before reaching 3. It's no? 1, 2, the previous chapters before 3. God's wrath, judgment, and difficulties, and the difficulties that suddenly Paul had expressed in the previous chapters, no? Dito sa 3, bigla siyang kumambyo. Kasi ito ang difficulty natin eh. Meron tayong judgment na harapin. No? That there is the wrath of God na nandyan. Dito ko naalala madalas si R.C. Sproul. I heard this first from him. Nung sinabi niya that God is saving you from Him. Sabi ko, nung una ko narinig yun, sabi ko, God is saving me from Him? Ano? Na para bang ako ang author ng something na mag-undergo sa kasarat ko, but ako mismo ang magsasave sa'yo. Hindi malinaw ang concept, but the more, no? You know, that's why we say, it's very important to know your God, His righteousness, in order to understand these things. At binarating kanina, if I am sinful, and I'm bound to hell, and God is righteous, what is my chance now? No? Bigyan cambio dito ngayon si Paul. Sabi natin kanina sa mga chapters 1 and 2, and some and 3, before 21, Paul is talking about the wrath, judgment, difficulties. In 21, he says, but the righteousness of God, apart from the law, is revealed. No? Suddenly, a hope is revealed. Kung may questions tayo kanina, paano na? In this, what we have read, hope is revealed. But the righteousness of God, apart from the law, is revealed. Now, a perfect righteousness. Ito, nabanggit din natin may kanina. Kailangan natin ng perfect righteousness. Apart from the filthy righteousness na binabandera ng tao. Apart from the stained sins, work of sins na ginagawa ng tao, we have now been introduced into a perfect righteousness that God had revealed. The gospel reveals a righteousness apart from the law that accomplished the redemption for sinners. No? If we read on Genesis 15:6, let's just go to it quickly. Genesis 15:6. What did it say? And he believed the Lord, and he counted to him as righteousness. That's about Abraham. Then, and Psalm 32 verse 1 to 2. Tingnan po natin sa Psalm 32 verses 1 to 2. Psalm. (32) verses 1 to 2. Blessed are those whose transgression is forgiven, whose sin is covered. Blessed is the man against whom the Lord counts no iniquity, and in whose spirit there is no deceit. And Isaiah 61:10. Isaiah 61:10. I will greatly rejoice in the Lord, my soul shall exult in my God, for he has clothed me with the garments of salvation. He has covered me with the robe of righteousness, as a bridegroom decks himself like a priest with a beautiful headdress, and as a bride adorns herself with her jewels. Maganda po, no? Naintindihan at nabasa natin ito. God has covered me with the robe of His righteousness, clothed me with the garments of His salvation. So we see, no? Notice, sa mga binasa natin, that this righteousness comes down to us. It came down to us. It was given to us. It is not something that we offer up to God. Hindi tayo haharap sa Kanya at ipipresent natin, this is my righteousness, O Lord. This is what the Word is saying. He has given you, covered you with the robe of righteousness. This righteousness, therefore, no, mga kapatid, is imputed, as we always say, always believe. This has been credited in your account for every sinner who renounces sin and trusts Christ as their Savior. No? It has been imputed to you. The legal implication is, no? A transfer of debt or asset, no? Has been given from one person to another. He credited us fully as sinners with a perfect righteousness, not of our own. No? Bakit ganun tayo kayabang, no? Waving our righteousness. We have read these words. Should humble us down. Not from me. This is the righteousness of God that was given me, that clothed me. So the full merit of Christ's righteousness is imputed to all united with Him by faith. And precisely the same way, their guilt, our guilt, was imputed to Him. As it is written in 2 Corinthians 5:21. Tingnan po natin. What did 2 Corinthians 5:21 say? For our sake, He made Him to be sin, who knew no sin, so that in Him we might become the righteousness of God. In Him, no? We might become the righteousness of God. the full merit of Christ's righteousness imputed to us all, and our guilt was imputed to Him. Ano? Nasabi natin kanina, may question tayo, paano na ako? Paano na ang salvation ko? Going back to Romans 3:21 to 22. Paano na ako? Sinner. How can I stand up before God? Hindi ako makakomply. Wala akong means. Sinabi natin kanina, Romans 3. -- 21 to 22. Ano ko lang po quickly. Ano ko lang sa Romans 1. We see, from here we will see, Paul talking about God's wrath on unrighteousness. Paul is talking about God's righteous judgment. Paul is talking about God's judgment and the law. And then, sa 3, God's righteousness upheld. No? And then finally, umating tayo sa 21. Sabi nga natin kanina, there is a sudden turn. What did the 21 say? Let's read. But now, the righteousness of God has been manifested apart from the law. Although the law and the prophets bear witness to it, the righteousness of God through faith in Jesus Christ for all who believe, for there is no distinction. No? But now, the righteousness of God, ito na. So, no? The truth was there in the Old Testament. If you remember, no, na-discuss din natin to last time. I think ako rin nandito last time. But we said that the New Testament is there in the Old. But what is the status? Concealed. No? And the Old is in the New. Revealed. Nandun na to, matagal na. Hindi to bago. No? Kaya sinasabi natin, ito, cambio to, biglang cambio. Sabi niya, but now, the righteousness of God has been manifested. It's now revealed. If we see in the Old Testament, no, there are sacrificial systems which was loaded with, babasa natin, napakaraming description sa Old Testament on how they were doing things. It's loaded with graphic depictions ng substitutionary atonement. No? And, ito, the blood rituals na ginagawa nila that time reminded us, no, of what? It reminded us that reminded the faithful that the sins of all law, wages must be paid. It has to be paid. Dapat may kabayaran. Sins of all wages must be paid. No? Alam natin, may dapat pagbayaran. These sacrifices, nabasa rin natin in the Old Testament, has been repeated over and over and over again. Animals, as we all know, can never take away sins. Hebrews 10 verse 10. No? And it was merely symbols, because it's not possible for the blood of goats and and bulls to take away sins. Ano? So, tanong natin, if that was the practice in the old time, then, in this case, where can we find a truly acceptable substitute? No? If the sacrificial system focus entirely on the punishment, ito ang kasi ng konsepto ng sacrificial system that time, focus most entirely on the punishment, on what the law demands. No? Ito punishment to, according dun sa nire-require ng law. This is what the law demands. If you don't comply, this is a punishment. Pero we ask ourselves, Kasi one part yun eh. If you have a law, if you don't obey, you will be punished. May other part. I have the law. How about obedience to this law? How can I comply to this law? Because that's the other part. When you offer, when the blood flows, this is the punishment on what not following this law. How about the complying to this law, compliance to this law? Hmm? How was the perfect righteousness of the law be fulfilled? Hmm? Sabi natin ang unang tanong natin is, perfect righteousness. Where can we find a truly acceptable substitute? Kasi sabi natin, ang goats and bulls, they cannot take away the sins. Where can we find then acceptable substitute? And we know that we have to comply on this law. Kasi yung other part is yun yung kaparusahan. How about compliance? Ang tanong na ito ay nasagot during the incarnation of Christ. Romans 8:3-4. What the law could not do in its weakness through flesh, God sent His own Son in the likeness of a sinful flesh on account of sin. No? Have the law, compliance to it, kabayan. Romans 3:21 introduced us, yung binasa natin kanina. But now, it introduced us on the turning point in God's redemptive plan. It is an era, itong panahon that launched the incarnation of Christ. Colossians 1:26. Colossians 1:26. The mystery hidden for ages and generations, but now revealed to His saints. No? 2 Timothy 1:10. And which now has been manifested through appearing of our Jesus Christ, who abolished death and brought life and mortality to light through the gospel. So the righteousness of God, no? It says here, the law and the prophets, sabi nasa natin kanina, these are the old Testament canon, who was there, who was foretold in the Old Testament. It's very clear that Paul was talking about Jesus Christ, who of course, because He is a God incarnate, first of all, He embodies the come down from us. We benefit from it, beneficiary ka. Isaiah 45:8. Isaiah 45 verse 8. Shower, O heavens, from above, and let the clouds rain down high righteousness. Let the earth open, and that salvation and righteousness may be bear fruit. Let the earth cause them both to sprout. I, the Lord, have created it. This imputed righteousness, is the sole ground of our justification. So, lagi natin naririnig, God accepts sinner not because of something good or praiseworthy in us. God did not do something good and praiseworthy for us. That's why He saved us. Remember, sinabi na Isaiah, our righteousness are like filthy rags. So the moment you even say, or you don't even remember not doing any sin, sabi ni Paul, you will not be judged by this. It is the Lord who will judge. Our good works contribute nothing to our righteous standing. Dapat nating maintindihan. True believers are united with Christ through faith. Ephesians 3:17. And therefore, they are in Christ. God accepts them on that basis. Ephesians 1 verse 6. Tingnan po natin. To the praise of His glorious grace, with which He has blessed us in the Beloved. God accepts us on that basis. Ay nga sabi natin kanina, the very one who gave us the law that condemns us. Sabi natin kanina, we are being saved. You are being saved from God. From God's what? From God's wrath. No? You are being justified to be saved from God's wrath. Sabi natin, the very one who gave the law that condemns all of us also supplies the righteousness needed to save us. And that is the only merit we need to have a right standing before God. Yun lang. Our question was, how I can be right with God? Right with God, because God sees the righteousness of Christ in you, imputed in you. And lastly, tingnan po natin sa 2 Corinthians 4 verse 4. In their case, the God of this world has blinded the minds of the unbelievers to keep them from seeing the light of the gospel of the glory of Christ, who is in the image of God. Ito yun sa They will be blinded. But for us, the light of the gospel is only in the glory of Christ. So, dito po, we should always remember, it should be always a question for us. It should always be a concern for us, our salvation. And, pag maalala po natin kanina, the world is going to offer us many ways. Ideologies, social political ways, how to be righteous. But as we have said, it is only the righteousness of God that should be seen in us, that we may be saved from God's wrath. So, amen. Tayo po'y tumayo.